Right, Shalom. Before I begin, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Ruach Kodash. I'd like to say double honors to my teachers, the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone, the men whom I've learned this truth from, and also Shalom and salutations to the elect that's out there preaching this word in truth and sincerity. I'm the brother Shaquat from the branch of Great Millstone, Montreal, back with another in-transit lesson. And this in-transit lesson is going to be based off a video I just watched. And the video was pretty much going into how, or what was shown in the video was a clip from Wi-Fi, Watchmen for Israel, and that's another Israelite group. But and, you know, the video goes to show clearly that group, they lack understanding. You know, they lack understanding of the scriptures. You know, because what was seen in the video is they were preaching, and the place they were preaching, it seemed like they were blocking a passageway to get into an apartment or a bar, whatever that is. You know, but they ran into two Edomites, and the Edomites were holding drinks in their hands, so I think it's a bar. You know, but they're preaching right in front of the doorway. You know, and it's blocking the passageway to get into that place. You know, which that's, first and foremost, you shouldn't, you know, do that. You know, because if you're wise, right, you would avoid blocking a doorway to an entrance. You know, you wouldn't set up right in front of someone's door or a door that's being used constantly. You know, but then not only that, if it's a bar, why would you set up right in front of a bar? You know, why would you set up camp right in front of a bar? It doesn't make sense. You know, because why do people go to bars? Or, you know, it's to drink, to have a good time, to relax, you know, and you're interrupting that. You know, scriptures speak about a time and place for everything. You know, a time when to do things, man. And, you know, clearly those men, they lack that understanding that there's a time and a place to do things, man. So there's a place to hold camp. There's a better place. There's most likely a better place to hold camp instead of where they were set up, man. You know, and the scriptures encourage, not, you know, the scriptures, but the apostles and elders, you know, they encourage you using like critical thinking, man. And that's in the scriptures too. That's wisdom. You using wisdom, you know, to think, to make things make sense. Like, yo, does it make sense if I set up here, you know, where there's gonna be drunk people, you know, that are always gonna come and cause a disturbance? Because that's what people do when they're in a good spirit. And, you know, you don't know. And that's, you know, when the people start drinking, man, that's why drinks are called spirits, man. Spirits are on them. You don't know what's gonna happen, man. You know, and especially if they hear the wrong things, they're sensitive. You're more sensitive when you're drunk, man. When you're under the influence, you know. But they chose to set up where people drink, which doesn't make sense, because they're, you know, that's gonna cause a disturbance. That's always, this chaos gonna come from that, man. And that's what happened, right? The two Karens, they pretty much crashed out, probably because the brothers said something. And, you know, those, I don't even know if I should call them brothers, but, you know, Watchmen for Israel, they're known for, you know, clickbait videos. You know, they're known for theatrics. You know, and that's off. That's not the right spirit to be in. That's not what it's about. You know, when you're out in the highways and hedges, it's really about the elect and doing the work of the Most High. You know, you're trying to bring in the elect, man. You're not trying to It's not entertainment. It's not, oh, yo, let me clickbait this, you know, and put it up to gain views, you know, maybe followers too. It's not about that, but they're making it about that, which is wrong, man. You know, which is not right. It's not the right spirit to be in, man. Let me get something real quick in the book of Proverbs. Because that encounter, right, and that whole situation that happened, because they pushed the Edomite, man. They pushed one of the Edomites, because the Edomite tried to spill a drink on them, and then they pushed her, and they're women. They're both, you know, big women, but she fell to the ground. Chaos erupted, you know. But that's not a good, you know, thing for the whole Israelite, for every other Israelite camp, you know, whether it may be them or, because they're going to be painted as violent, man. And then what? That's just another reason to justify Esau from, you know, from coming in against us, man. From coming, you know, from, you know, detaining us, doing whatever he has to do, you know, locking us up. Because that situation, the Karens could easily win the case. Why? Because those men were blocking the doorway. Like, why are you blocking the doorway, and why are you preaching right in front of where I need to get in and get out? You know? You see? You're actually disturbing them, you know? And then they could pull out your private property, blah, 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 you know? So let me get this. Proverbs 2 and verse 10. It says, when wisdom entereth into thine heart, and knowledge is pleasant unto thy soul, discretion shall preserve thee, understanding shall keep thee, man. Yeah, so discretion, going into judgment, you know, understanding is going to keep you, right? In other words, critical thinking, right? The ability to judge between what's wrong and what's right, the ability to discern the time and place of things, you know, reading the room, reading the area, right? And if the Holy Spirit is with you, that those things are gonna, you know, constantly play in your mind, man. You're gonna think, man. You're gonna think, try to figure out the best possible solution, and that's using wisdom. You know, oh, the scriptures say, be at peace with all men. So I don't want to set up here because there's a bar, and I don't want to block the entrance, because if I do, we're gonna run into, you know, people that are drunk, you know, and I can't, you know, they might hear something that offends them, and, you know, they might rouse their spirit. But the scriptures say, be at peace with all men. So I gotta, let's think of another place, you know. So that's using wisdom and discretion, man, when you're thinking like that, you know. It says, verse 11, discretion shall preserve thee, understanding shall keep thee, to deliver thee from the way of evil man, from the man that speaketh forward things, right? You know, and that's gonna deliver you from a lot of bad situations when you use wisdom, knowledge, and understanding and discretion. It's gonna deliver you from a lot of problems, man. You know? And that's why that's what the scriptures are for, man. To help you maneuver in this life, right? Just like when you get pulled over, you know, the scriptures speak about agreeing with thine adversary quickly. When you get pulled over, you're not supposed to stand boldly and act like, you know, the officers in the wrong, because that's a dangerous thing. And we've seen countless of accounts go left, you know, with people that pretty much try to, you know, that didn't agree with their adversary quickly. People that you know, that put up a front, man. You know, try to be tough with an officer. That's not what you're supposed to do, because that's not gonna go anywhere. He has the power. You know, you don't have the power. You're the one getting pulled over, right? So you're already at a disadvantage when you're pulled over. So you might as well surrender, right? Count the costs. You know, picking your battles wisely, man. Right? You know, because that's definitely not a battle you're gonna win. Going up against an officer, a police officer. You know, so you might as well just surrender and try to pretty much make the best out of that situation, even though it's bad. You know, you just try to appease it as possible. And if you can't do anything about it, then you just take it. You know, that's good. That's better than you crashing out and saying no, and end up losing your life. Right? All those things are a part of wisdom, man. Using and applying wisdom. This is Romans 12 and verse 18. It says, if it be possible, if it's possible, right? Because you also have situations where it's not possible. But in the case of the Wi-Fi, that was possible to be at peace, at peace with that with those women. They should have just ignored them and let them go about their day, or they could have stationed somewhere else. You know, they could have avoided that whole situation. It was possible for them to avoid that whole situation and be at peace. You know, but they chose not to, because they have this this thing about them where they want to really show that, yo, they're, you know, they're the big dogs. You know, they the man. You know, they're the guys. But it's not about that, man. You know, it's not about that. That doesn't matter right now. You know, it says, if it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Right? That's what you're supposed to do, man. Right? You're supposed to live peaceably with all men, if it's possible. But then there are situations where, you know, everything is right, and you're the one that gets wrong. You know, and if somebody comes up to the cam, whatever, and they purposely, you know, do a particular thing, hit the camera, get, you know, whatever it may be, but everything else that you're doing was right, then you could be justified. If they hit you first, yo, you're not gonna stand for that, right? You're gonna fight back, because you know, you came at me first. Right? But there are cases where, if it's possible, it is possible to be at peace with all men. It says, verse 19, dear beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord Yahweh. Right? You know, so we're to give place unto wrath, you know, because it's not that time yet. That time is going to come where the Lord is going to pretty much avenge us, you know, on our enemies, man. Yeah, so with that, I hope this lesson was edifying. Call Halayim La Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Ruchab Badash. Once again, double honors to my teachers, the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone. Until next time, shalom.